The Michigan Wolverines, fresh off one of the best seasons they've had in a long, long time. Definitely the best season they've had ever under Jim Harbaugh. They beat Ohio State, won the division, won the Big Ten, and made the college football playoffs. The first time Harbaugh's done any of those four things all happened last year in the same season. Their only regular season loss, a close loss to Michigan State that really went sideways in the in the third and fourth quarters of that game. Michigan had that game in hand and kind of let it get away in the second half. No sense in rehashing that now. It ended up not mattering. You absolutely destroyed Ohio State in the final regular season game of the year, 42-27. Did the same thing to Iowa. Sorry about that. Did the same thing to Iowa in the Big Ten title game, whipping them 42-3. Sometimes you got to get a sip of water. I've done several of these today. Throat getting a little scratchy now, too. Anyway, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. Some of them are even watchable. I don't know about this one. You can let me know in the comments down below. Up today, we're going to take a look at Michigan's schedule in 2022. How does it compare to last year's? Can they repeat the success from last year? Is the schedule more difficult? What about the non-con games? How do they stack up this season versus last season? What about the conference games? Which ones are on the road this year? Are there any tricky 2 or 3 game stretch of games where Michigan could trip up? Where's the trap games? Where's the bye weeks? Where's the rivalry games? All that kind of stuff. This is not a prediction video. Now, I will do a prediction video for all of these teams. I usually start those in June. But this time of year, I like to just go one by one through a bunch of teams and take a look at the schedule. It starts to kind of give me an idea about how I think a team might do next year. Now, when I do the prediction videos, I go a lot more in depth with the rosters and the starters and who they lost, maybe some incoming freshmen that can make impacts and things like that. This is strictly just looking at the schedule. So let's just take a look at it. I mean, you start out, your spring game's coming up. Is it this weekend? Holy moly. Spring game coming up this weekend, April 2nd. For Michigan. So we'll get a look at what Michigan looks like this year. Of course, they lost 2 of their best playmakers on defense. Got some pieces to fill on offense too, but returned a whole bunch of talent. You'll get to see that and the new guys, the early enrollees, the true freshmen from last year's class at the spring game for Michigan coming up on April 2nd. But I want to talk about the actual schedule today. You start off with a non-conference game against Colorado State. Last year you played Western Michigan, so a similar type of matchup here. You get them at home. This is a game that should not be close. Michigan will be a significant favorite in this game, and you should hit the ground running with a big win in 2022. The same can be said for your Week 2 matchup where you take on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Long trip for Hawaii to Ann Arbor, Michigan to play that one. Now, last year in this spot, you played a Power 5 opponent, Washington. Now, you whipped them 31-10. Probably be a similar result in this one against Hawaii, if not worse. Michigan will be a significant favorite in their first 2 home games of the season. That trend continues into Week 3 when you play UConn. UConn, one of the worst football programs in the country. Michigan should be 3-0 and on a roll in September. Now, the Maryland game could be a little bit tricky. It's your 4th straight home game. You start out with 4 games in a row at home, ending up with your first Big Ten Conference opponent of the year, Maryland. This is also homecoming for Michigan this year. Now, Michigan is a much better team than Maryland. There's no doubt about that. But Maryland does have the ability to beat a team or 2 this coming year, I think, that you don't expect them to beat. Will it be Michigan? I don't know. Again, Michigan will be a significant favorite in this game. They have a talent advantage, and in my opinion, probably a coaching staff advantage as well, although I do like the staff at Maryland. Then you have your first road game, and this is going to be a tough one at Iowa. Iowa, always a tough place to play. They play great defense. They run the ball really, really good. Kind of a matchup of similar styles in this game. You didn't play Iowa in the regular season last year, but of course you absolutely destroyed them in the Big Ten title game, like I mentioned before, 42-3. That was, of course, a neutral site game in Indianapolis. This time you got to go to Kinnick Stadium there in Iowa City and take on the Hawkeyes. That'll be your toughest game of the season so far. That comes the first Saturday in October, Week 5. Back-to-back road games as you travel to Indiana the following week to take on the Hoosiers. One of the most disappointing teams in all of football last year. I never really understood the hype around Indiana last offseason, but there was a lot of hype around Indiana last offseason, and I think they only won one conference game. Hard to imagine they'll be that bad again this year, but also hard to imagine that they're going to be good enough to compete with Michigan this year. You beat them 29-7 at home last year. You'll be a huge favorite again, even though it's on the road. This time. And then Penn State. Now, this is going to be a tough game. This is a great game every year. This was a great game last year. One of the closest games of the year for Michigan last year when you played at Penn State, came away with a win, 21-17. That was a big win for Michigan because you had lost a couple of weeks before that to Michigan State. You know, everybody was sort of in a wait-and-see pattern with Michigan last year when they got off to that hot start. And then when they lost on the road at Michigan State, you had a lot of people started to doubt Michigan. See, here we go again. They can't win the big games. They can't beat their rivals. They can't win the division, yada, yada, yada. The next opportunity you really had to prove anything after that loss at Michigan State last year was on the road at Penn State. You had played Indiana after losing to Michigan State, but no one was really going to give you credit for beating Indiana because they were just horrible. But when you went on the road and won at Penn State 21-17, that got some, that brought people back on board. It at least plugged the hole there for a while. That was a big win that Michigan really needed last year and really propelled them, I think, down the home stretch of the season, which, of course, ended with a win at home against Ohio State. So this will be another big game this year. This time you get Penn State at home. Penn State, they've a little disappointing last year. They've got a tough schedule. They play Auburn early in the year. Of course, they play Ohio State every year, too. This will be a good game. I would imagine, at least right now, Michigan would be a favorite in this game. Now, obviously, this game comes, week 6, 7, whatever it is of the 2022 season. We'll know a lot more about both these teams by the time they play than we do now. But if you were to handicap this game now, I would imagine, especially with it being a home game for Michigan, that Michigan would be a touchdown favorite maybe in this game. Then you have your bye week. Pretty good spot for the bye week. Comes right in the middle of your schedule, and it comes between two pretty big games. You get Penn State at home, then you get your bye week, then you get in-state rival Michigan State at home. And obviously this will be a big game like it is every year, Michigan versus Michigan State. Two in-state schools, an in-state rivalry, and they gave you your only regular season loss of the season last year when they beat you 37-33 at their place. You get a chance for revenge at home this year on October 29th. Michigan should win that game. Michigan State was kind of a one-horse wonder last year, right? They were Kenneth Walker or bust, and he had a huge game against you last year. He's gone. I don't know how Michigan State is going to replace the production they had from Kenneth Walker last year to put up the same type of numbers offensively that they did. We'll see. I would think this is a game Michigan should be able to win. Then you go on the road and play at Rutgers. Not as bad as a lot of the Rutgers teams we've seen over the years. Not as good as they were in their kind of heyday 10 or 12 years ago when, I'm drawing a blank on the coach's name now. When he was there the first time, then he left, went to the NFL, whatever. Now he's back. They haven't gotten to the level they were under him the first time, but not necessarily just an automatic cupcake win that they have been sometimes either, and you have to play them there. Then you come back home and play Nebraska. Nebraska's an interesting team. Scott Frost, the heat could not get any hotter underneath his seat this season. The guy has been an absolute disaster and failure at Nebraska every single year he's been there. 0 winning records, 0 bowl games, 0 real significant wins. You can only brag about close losses for so long, and I will admit the majority of their losses last year were extremely close, 1 possession or less. But come on, they were 3-9. Even if they turn half of those losses into wins, they're still a 7-5 team, not the type of team that should be competing with Michigan. You get them at home, comes at a favorable time on your schedule, really. I mean, at Rutgers, then Nebraska, Illinois the following week. Illinois, another team. Unlike Nebraska, Illinois does seem to get like a big win every once in a while, but they still finish with 4, 5, 6, 7 wins or something like that. Again, the talent gap is huge between teams like Michigan and Nebraska, Michigan and Rutgers, Michigan and Illinois. This should be an opportunity for Michigan to get on a roll at the end of the season, starting especially with this game at Rutgers, then Nebraska, then Illinois. you should have 3 confident wins there. And if you'll probably beat Michigan State too. So coming off of that bye week, you have a chance to really pick up some momentum there heading into, of course, the biggest game of the year, every single year in the Big Ten, Michigan versus Ohio State. You have to play them there. Revenge game for Ohio State. Michigan did win last year, but it's the first time in forever, it seems like, that Michigan has beat them. First time Harbaugh's ever beat them. You're probably going to be favored in every single game you play this year up until this Ohio State game. I feel like Ohio State will probably be the favorite in this one. It's a home game for them. They've got the revenge motivation, and they're going to have one of the most explosive offenses in all of college football. They're going to have Heisman candidate at quarterback, Heisman candidate at wide receiver, and Heisman candidate at running back, and I expect them to put up huge numbers at all 3 of those positions. Defense is going to be the question for Ohio State heading into next year. That's really what cost them last year in losses to Oregon and, of course, Michigan. This will be a great game. Every college football fan will watch it, no doubt about it. I don't care how much trash or how much crap people like to talk when they talk college football, and trust me, I love trash talking as much as anybody else. There ain't a college football fan alive that doesn't look forward to the Michigan-Ohio State game every single year. That will be the case again when you wrap up your 2022 regular season on the road at Ohio State on, November 26th or something like that, the last weekend of the regular season. Big Ten title game will be the following Saturday on December 3rd. Can Michigan make a return trip to the Big Ten title game? They did it last year, destroyed Iowa, made the college football playoffs for the first time in school history, before losing, of course, in the first round of the playoffs to Georgia, 34-11. But still, a great season for Michigan. Their first time making the playoffs. Not very many people, if any people at all, had Michigan penciled in to go to the playoffs at this time last year. And yet, they somehow found themselves there. They'll be looking to repeat that again. Not easy to do. I'm a college football fan. Georgia is my favorite team. I don't try to hide it. Even as a Georgia fan, as far as Georgia repeating what they did last year, almost impossible. It's just hard. It's hard to maintain that type of level year after year after year after year. But we'll see if Michigan can do it. It's most likely going to come down, like it does most years, to that last game of the regular season at Ohio State. And Michigan doesn't have to be better than Ohio State in weeks 1 through 11. They only have to be better than Ohio State for 3 hours when they play on November 26th, and we'll see if they can do it. But anyway, there you go. That's a look at Michigan's schedule. Be sure to let me know down there what y'all think Michigan might do this year. And a big shout-out to George J. over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. He's the one that suggested I do this Michigan schedule preview. So, George, thank you, sir. I hope you enjoyed that video. I really appreciate you supporting me and the channel over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. To everybody on the Patreon page, if it was not for you guys, I would not be able to do what I do. I cannot thank you enough for all the support y'all give me on the Patreon page. As far as what teams I'm going to be doing next in this series of schedule previews, I've done 5, 6, or 7 or so of these. We're going to do these for another couple of weeks. I'm going to try to do 25 or 30 of them. The teams that I'm doing are coming from suggestions over on my Patreon page. So if you're not on the Uncle Lou Patreon page and you want to check it out, there's a link in the description of this video that'll take you over there. You can have yourself a look around. If you like what you see, I would appreciate it if you'd go ahead and get signed up, help support Uncle Lou, help support the channel. Look, this ain't easy to do in the offseason. It is not easy to make a college football channel work year-round. The offseason's hard work, and without the Patreon page, I wouldn't be able to do it. So big shout-out to everybody over there, and I will see you all again real soon. Have a good morning.